it's so fascinating. That, people go to talk therapy. I actually was just involved in a conversation with a woman who said, like, all I do is talk and talk and talk, and the therapist just listens, and I don't feel like I'm making any progress. And, what they really need is this. They really need the ability to rewrite their memories.
Yeah.
So,
and what we were talking about with the reconsolidation window, it's the reason why talk therapy doesn't work. Because, if you're going to put the same energy back into those neurons that were there to begin with, of course nothing's going to change, right?
Right.
So you got to change the signal to actually change how you're feeling.
Yeah, that makes sense. Hello and welcome. I am so glad you're here. If you're a new listener, thank you for joining. Please hit that follow or subscribe button, and also share this show with those who are struggling with divorce. Well, if you are struggling with emotional pain from your divorce, or even events in your past, and you find yourself unable to move forward in your life, listen in as Patrick Ward, a neuroplastician and founder of Healing Mindshift, shares how to release emotional pain by working with the subconscious mind to rewire the memories and beliefs that quietly shape how we feel, think, and show up in life. This is the Silver Divorce Podcast, broadcast from the Whitfield Media Group studios in Chattanooga, Tennessee. Please follow this show and share it with people you know who are facing divorce. We are proudly brought to you by our title sponsor, the Center for Sports Medicine and Orthopedics, and show sponsor, Medicare Misty. Center for Sports Medicine and Orthopedics is the area's leading provider of multi-specialty orthopedic care. Using innovative surgical techniques and technologies, our team of specialists deliver exceptional results backed by exceptional patient care. Learn more at sportmed.com. Medicare Misty is a real person who can help answer your Medicare questions. Get real help from her team at medicaremisty.com. And I'm your host, Lisa McCluskey, and now let's podcast. Welcome, Patrick.
Hi, thanks for having me.
Well, I'm very excited to have you. When I first started learning about this, I wasn't sure what a neuroplastician was, and the more I dove into it, I thought, this is remarkable. So I'm really excited to dive in more. And one of the things that I discovered, I think we always knew this, but didn't really think of it this way, that your mind is like a computer software program. It gathers information, stores memories, and I likened it to uploading photographs and videos to your iCloud. It influences how you see and react to the outside world. It stores away your past trauma, and that ends up guiding your emotions today. So, what if you could do a reboot, a software update on your brain, and actually heal from that trauma? And that is possible because Patrick is going to help us discover how.
Well, thank you. That was a great introduction. Yes, and you're exactly right. Our brain is very much like a computer. I liken it to an iPhone, basically installed with a bunch of apps.
Yeah, I would say that's true. So, well, let's just start. And I'd like you to share your personal journey and your background, and then we'll get into, we'll start with the basics. But first, we want to know about you. How did you come to this point?
Well, I never planned to become a neuroplastician, to be honest with you. My job was, I thought was going to be a writer, right? And but when I was a young man, I witnessed a truly horrific event, and it took me about 10 years to realize that was a murder-suicide, that singular event was controlling my behavior. And so I tried to do the traditional talk therapy route, but for me, talk therapy made things worse, and not just kind of worse. I'm talking like it would take me 3-4 days to recover from a single session.
Oh my.
So I started trying to basically heal myself, and unsuccessfully. you know, um, but I was doing research. I was committed to heal because that event I realized was causing me to never show any form of upset or aggression. It was controlling my behavior in crowds. I would not go to a crowded event if I did not know who was there, or if I was not able to like truly, get my bearings. Um, and I have 3 kids, and my 3 kids want to go do stuff, and I was finding reasons why we couldn't, and I was like, this is not who I want to be. So I started doing research, and I came across the names Larry Nims and Robert Smith. And unfortunately, Larry Nims was retired at that point. I believe he was actually battling cancer, if I remember correctly. But Robert Smith was still around. And so I booked a session with him. He was a guy that claimed that we could work directly with the subconscious to greatly expedite healing. It's like, well, that's good. Fast is good. I like that. So I booked a session with him, and he knocked out a good chunk of my pain and misery in one session. And so I went back for another, and he found like we got through the murder suicide and started working on other stuff. And he was like, is there anything else you want to work on? It's like, yeah, sure. And so we got through those memories as well. And soon thereafter, he started a school, so I enrolled, and I haven't really looked back since. I had to know how he did it. I had to understand, and and once I understood, I decided like, no, well, this is what I want to do. This is what I want to do with the rest of my life, and so I've been a practitioner ever since.
Wow, that's remarkable. You were able to turn tragedy into a life calling to helping other people.
Yeah.
So tell me what is. I had to look it up. I wasn't quite sure. So tell our audience, what is a neuroplastician, and what are some of the key characteristics of neuroplasticity?
Well, so plastic means changeable, right? So a neuroplastician is a person that is able to work with your mental mechanics in order to initiate change within your mind. Your brain is not designed to be an archive of unchanging truths, right? And so if you understand that it's actually designed to be updated continuously, you can use that ability to your advantage to help a person come about changes in their life. What was the second part of your question? I'm sorry.
Oh, so what are some of the key characteristics of neuroplasticity?
Well, yeah. So every time your brain, forgive me, I'm going to go into jargon. You have to pull me out of the jargon.
That's
if
okay.
I go too heavily in the jargon.
All right.
But every time your brain recalls a specific memory, the neurons associated with that memory light up. And when they light up, they become available to be changed because your brain releases chemicals that makes the proteins responsible for holding those neurons intact. It releases chemicals that enables that neuron to be changed, right? It's what enables you to learn. It's also what enables you to forget. And so neuroplasticians take advantage of that. And so we actively have you go into the memory and light up everything about it that bothers you. And when you do that, everything that's associated with the memory becomes available to be changed.
So you really want to dive in and access that memory, not bury that memory.
Absolutely. Yeah. If, the old saying, what you resist persists, is actually very true. But it doesn't mean you have to accept it. That's the thing. It doesn't mean you have to accept it. But if you resist it, it's going to stay there forever. Like the only memories that you have that are reliable are the ones you never access. Because every time you go into a memory, that memory actually becomes available to be changed. And it's the reason why time can heal all wounds if you actually know what you're doing.
Hmm. That is a completely different approach from traditional therapy, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Because in traditional therapy, you go in and you talk about it and you try to understand it. Uh, I will actively try to understand your problem, but it doesn't mean that I'm going to try to get you to a point where you can accept it. No, I just need to understand what you're doing to yourself. And once I understand what you're doing to yourself, we can actually make changes. But in talk therapy, you go there and you just kind of talk about it and you try to understand it. I'll try to understand it for, a good bit before we get started. But once I understand it, I'm going in there specifically to make changes.
I see the difference. So rather than talking about it to try to understand why you might feel that way, you're taking an approach of, okay, we got it. Now let's go back in and change that, because those past memories are shaping your identity and self-worth today. Is that right?
Yeah, that's 100% right. Yes.
Yeah.
Everything that we observe, everything we experience, basically acts as code for how you should behave right here and now, right? Mm-hmm. It's like, say you saw something that you didn't like. So it's like, when this happened, then that happened. I didn't like it when that happened, right? So I'm going to make sure that never happens again. So I'm going to change my behavior. I'm going to change my environments so that bad thing doesn't happen to me again, right? Mm-hmm. And oftentimes we do these things without even thinking. It doesn't. I mean, if you push came to shove, you could probably get it out of a person. But sometimes we just act in such ways that we just believe, well, this is just who I am. But really, you're that way. You're that way because an experience is controlling your behavior.
So let me ask a couple questions then. Is there, what this audience is, people who have been through maybe decades of marriage, and for the most part, they're older. Is there an age where neuroplasticity works the strongest, or can it be any age? Can it be, I'm 68 years old, and is it still possible for me to go through a session and actually rewire or reboot my brain?
You are never too old to take advantage of your brain's mental mechanics. No, this modality is useful at every age. I would say it's actually more useful for people when they're older. I have some clients that are children. They can be more difficult for reasons that might be no reason really to go into that, but they rely more on imagination, and they can kind of cling to the imagination more so than adults can. But no, as an adult, no, you can definitely take advantage of this modality. One of my clients is actually close to 80, and we're actually working on relationship stuff, still. And there's no age for you're too old to take advantage of this.
Well, that's good news. At least we know you can come through that traumatic experience and still step back and receive some healing, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, there's no age that limits your ability to heal, and I think that's one of the greatest things about our minds, is that the opportunity to heal can come about at any moment. You just have to decide to do the work. I think that's one of the best things about our brains, is that they're actually designed to heal.
Right. So it is possible to, you talk about rewriting a memory. Can you explain what the difference is between erasing a memory or rewriting a memory? What do you mean by that?
Well, so when we go into a session, we'll call forth a memory that still causes you to wince and gives you pain and misery when you think about it. And I'll ask you, okay, well, what about it is standing out? And oftentimes it's the face someone made or something that they said, and that causes an emotional reaction to it, right? So, like, say your husband constantly belittled you, and every time you hear those words, you have an emotional reaction to it. Well, that emotional reaction is more or less a trance state. I tell people I rewrite memories, but my actual job is to break trances. And so when you have an emotional reaction to something in a memory, you're actually going into a mini trance. And so what we want to do is pull you out of it so that while you're being upset with it, and then your brain will begin to associate better things with what was said to you. But what we do is we address every aspect of a memory, normal things. We have actions, faces made, things that were said. But then I'll have you like go into the person's body and be like, okay, well, what do you feel when you're in that person's body? Because everyone within you is you, right? And so we're finding additional aspects of the memory of things that you think about yourself because of this event. And so then, we're going after each and every one of those things, and we're lowering the emotional intensity of each of them. And when they're down to a 0, the brain has basically let go of it. And we want to actually change the story of what happened, not because we want to convince ourselves that it didn't. What we're actually trying to do is we're trying to prevent the brain from anticipating that thing happening again, right? So we actually actively go in and we change the story. Your brain won't let you change the story until the emotional intensity is down to a 0. Because if there's any emotional intensity to the memory whatsoever, the brain conceives it as a threat, perceives it as a threat. And so your brain's job is to keep you safe, right? Mm-hmm. So once it's down to 0, the brain will allow you to change the story. And we do that so that you don't anticipate that thing happening again in the future. Does that make sense?
It does, and it leads me to think about triggers. We talk about that, absolutely. Patrick. There are certain things that will trigger you to have a strong emotional reaction and remembering something really negative, perhaps in your marriage. It could be, a restaurant you ate at, or you see a photo. Facebook serves you up a memory. How does that help you with triggers? Can you talk about that? Okay.
This technique, memory reconsolidation, it removes triggers. Yeah, absolutely. It's actually one of its best functions. And the way that you remove the trigger is by going to the memory where that event first happened, or it may not be the first occurrence, but it's the one where it has the strongest emotional intensity. And if we can change the emotional intensity of that, the trigger just fades away. Yeah.
Okay. I would think then that would lead to helping you manage anxiety. Does it have a benefit to that?
Yeah, I mean, absolutely. And, and the thing about anxiety that people are unwilling to admit is that anxiety does not exist on its own. You don't just have anxiety, right? There's a reason why you're anxious. And so we work on the reasons why you're anxious. And yes, your anxiety will just fade away. But I mean, if you're on anti-anxiety medicine, obviously talk with your doctor before coming off of it. But oftentimes people realize I don't actually need this anymore because the things that were upsetting me don't bother me anymore. But of course, you need to talk to your doctor before you go off of them.
Yeah. Do most people actually have a good understanding of what prompts their anxiety? Or do they maybe hang it on one or two things, but it might be something that is way back in their memory that they're just not attributing? Do you see that?
I think most people like to pretend that they don't know where their anxiety comes from. Mm-hmm. But I think everyone knows where it comes from for sure. But there are particular cases where people, say someone was raped when they were a child and they don't actually have an active memory of it. Well, but they have a suspicion of it, right? There are techniques that we can do where we can still, even if you don't fully remember it, we can still have it, we can still get it out of your head. But yeah, most people know why they're anxious. They just like to pretend that, no, I'm just an anxious person. But most people have a reason, and they know what that reason is.
Got an injury that just can't wait? There's no need to delay your care. Center for Sports Medicine and Orthopedics is excited to announce that our Urgent Ortho Walk-In Clinic is now available on Saturdays at the Gun Barrel Road location. Open from 8 to noon, we're here to treat sprains, strains, fractures, and more. No appointment needed. So skip the long ER wait and get specialized orthopedic care fast. Visit us this Saturday at Center for Sports Medicine and Orthopedics Urgent Ortho. We're the center for expert care right when you need it. Learn more at sportmed.com.
I wanted to talk about how that then can improve your cognitive functioning in the future. Once you have been through sessions and you've been able to rewrite your memories and rewire your brain, do you find that it improves overall cognitive functioning in people?
There are many, many benefits to cleaning up the subconscious, and ultimately that's what we're doing. We're cleaning up what the brain is using against you. And but yes, definitely, when you have stress removed from your life, everything improves. Like your blood pressure improves, your heart rate improves. I could say it's likely to improve. I can't guarantee that, but when you remove stress from the system, the body follows. And yes, oftentimes you're able to think more clearly and just feel better as a result, because this emotional weight that you've been carrying with you is no longer controlling you. Right.
Right. Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. I know as you're talking about the process that you go through with people, you mentioned in some of the readings that I did on your website, you talk about a protein that's involved in the process. Can you share what that's about?
Well, so obviously, like all of your neurons are, they're made up of proteins, and you have to forgive me, I don't remember specifically the one that is in question, but like I was saying earlier, when you actively call forth a memory, your brain releases nitric oxide and various chemicals that make those neurons malleable. And when they become malleable, they have to be rebuilt, right? And it's the process of rebuilding those neurons that enables memory reconsolidation and the work that I do to be permanent, right? Because we have literally changed what's in your head, right? We haven't just thought something and hoped the thought would stick. No, we've literally changed how your brain is. We've changed what's within it. And so it's that process that enables this whole thing to work. We're not just hoping it will work. We know it will work because we've literally changed what's within your head.
So it is possible to make a lasting change. That it isn't just something temporary, and then you, after your sessions, you go back to feeling the same way later on, but you're talking about this is going to be something that will last.
Yeah, no, this is absolutely lasting change. This isn't just like a temporary reprieve from your pain. No, this is lasting change. What we do, you don't have to believe in it for it to work. This isn't, like a placebo. We're not just hoping it will work. It's going to work.
You're not hypnotizing people.
No, I'm not hypnotizing anyone. In fact, I would actually say that's the opposite of what I do. You don't have to hope it will work in order for it to work, because changes are occurring. Now, you can rebuild your problem. That's what sometimes people will do. Like they'll go back and keep checking it and checking it and checking it. It's like, is it still good? Is it still good? I remember this really hurting me. And then like they try to basically make it come back. But in the process of trying to make it come back, they're actually rebuilding their problem. But you can do that with anything. I mean, you could do that right now without even actually having an event. You could give yourself problems if you're determined enough. Mm-hmm. But if you allow the changes to stick and you don't like force them to come back with your power of will, they'll stay. They'll stay.
Right.
As long as you allow them to.
You truly want to have the desire for your brain to be rewired and for the problems to go away.
Well, yes, but I mean, like, all memories are reconstructions, right? Every time you call forth a memory, you're rebuilding it. And that's why every time you call forth a memory, it changes. It, like the environment you're in, the emotions you're having at the time, those influence the memory, right? And so you can, knowing that, you can actively build yourself problems, right? By trying to give it back to you. But, like, does it require mental discipline? Not so much. I'm just saying, like, is it possible to give yourself problems again? Yeah, it's possible. But most people, they like feeling better, and so they leave it be.
Right. They like feeling less anxious and depressed. And
Yeah.
So for people in divorce, I could see how that would help them to go on and think about the future, leave people more hopeful about where they're headed in the future.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Put you in a better place so that what you anticipate the future to be is actually a place you want to be instead of a place you want to avoid. Yeah.
Right. So, in thinking beyond divorce and beyond trauma and healing, it occurred to me that it might be beneficial for somebody who's been through, maybe a brain injury or a stroke, or because it might help heal the brain, it sounds like.
Well, I can't really say. I can't honestly tell you that I've worked with people who are stroke victims, and that this process enabled them to heal. But this process is really good for just any sort of pain that you've been carrying with you, and just releasing the pain makes the brain healthier because you're no longer in a stressed state, and that just enables everything else to run more smoothly.
Yeah. I could see also if you're in business, this would be a very helpful process as well, just to release a lot of stress and be able to think more clearly and improving your cognitive function. There's a lot of benefits in addition to.
Yeah, most, especially for entrepreneurs. Many entrepreneurs, they have money scripts running in their head. They have confidence issues, all sorts of things that are preventing them from becoming the person they want to be. And so you get those scripts out of their head, and they suddenly have the confidence to do what needs to be done. And not only do they have the confidence to do it, but they want to do it. It's a great technique, especially for just about any problem, but definitely for confidence and catastrophizing for sure.
So if I've listened to this and I think this is something that I want to do, walk me through the next steps, what the process would look like.
Well, there are a few different routes we can take. Sometimes people come to me and they know exactly what they need to work on, and so we just get to work and we get that memory out of their heads. But sometimes people come to me and they have issues and they don't understand why they have those issues, right? Recently I had a woman come to me and she's like, I'm always trying to help people. I don't know why I'm trying to help people. And, I just kind of shot from the hip and was like, well, did you have to work for mom and dad's love and affection? And she's like, she looked like I had slapped her in the face. But, sometimes we have to do a little bit of digging, right? And if we have to do a little bit of digging, I'll be asking you questions, trying to understand the structure of your problem. And once we understand the structure, and I have some memories that I believe to be, like key players in why you are behaving the way that you are, then we'll get to work. And the process usually takes about 2 hours. 1 to 2 sessions is usually enough, but more may be needed depending on how long you've been walking around with certain issues in your head. But typically it takes about 2 sessions. 1 session will clean up a lot. 2 sessions we'll get the rest out of there. But we do an intake. We'll start the session. The whole process takes about 2 hours.
Okay. Is this something you do via Zoom if I'm not in your area?
Oh, yeah. I mean, primarily I do it over Zoom. Yeah.
Oh, okay.
It's all online. Yeah, I don't need to be in person to do this technique. The only thing that is required is for you to notice what's going on within your head. And, because of that, to be perfectly honest with you, I don't even technically need to know the details as long as you know what's going on within your head. But yeah, everything's done over Zoom, and yeah, it's an interesting job to have, to say the least, for sure.
Yeah, absolutely. I could see so many benefits to doing this and being able to move forward, rewire your brain. Excellent. So let me ask you a few personal questions. In your years of working with the Healing Mindset, is there a person whose story particularly moved you besides your own? Your story is incredible.
Yeah, there are a lot. Let's see. Well, since we're talking about divorce, recently I worked with a woman, who she came to me and, recovering from a divorce and the pain of that divorce, and it'd been going on for about 4 years that she'd been, feeling bad and grieving, and what came out was that her best friend had cheated on her husband. Her husband had cheated on her with her best friend.
With her best friend.
With her best friend, yes, and just so much rage over that, and so we got through the rage and we found what was causing so much anger, and then grief swept back in. And then suddenly rage came back in. I was like, okay, well, what are you doing to yourself? Because I was watching the emotional intensity lower, and suddenly it would spike back up. And I was like, okay, what happened? What'd you do to yourself? And she was like, they lied to me. And in my line of work, I know that everything a person says is actually about themselves. And so I looked at her and said, well, you lied to yourself too, didn't you? And she said, yes. I thought he was the one. I tried to make it work. I just couldn't. And so once we got through the grief of her realizing that she was actually upset with herself, and not, she was upset with her husband and her best friend, but she was actually primarily upset with herself. Once we got through that, we call it the SUDS, the subjective units of distress. Those SUDS, they collapsed down to 0, and we were able to change the memory to where she was actually thankful because her best friend had enabled her to get out of a relationship that wasn't making her happy. So we kind of flipped the script and it kind of made her thankful for that experience the day that she discovered those text messages. But that was a particularly powerful healing session. And, honestly, I spend more time trying to give problems back to people than I do taking them away. And so we got the emotional intensity of that memory out pretty fast. It was only about maybe 30 minutes or so. I can't remember exactly, and then we spent a few more minutes trying to give it back, and I just couldn't give it back to her. And I knew that once I can't give it back to a person, that there's nothing else to clean up. Mm-hmm. And so she was good to go after that. But yeah, lots of interesting stories for sure. Yeah.
Yeah, it sounds like you turned what they thought was the worst moment of their life into recognizing that it was actually the best moment of their life.
Yeah. And, I've checked up on her and she's still in a good place and she's moving forward with her life now. And, that's the good part is seeing like, okay, yeah, they're in a better place and, they're doing what they need to do to make themselves happy.
Mm-hmm. That's good. That's all you can hope for. So Patrick, what book is on your bedside table?
My wife is gonna laugh at me. My days are usually pretty filled with pretty serious stories, and
yes.
So at nighttime, I am pure fluff. I like to read funny sci-fi stories. No Oprah Winfrey book club stuff for me at the moment. But I'm a big fan of Connie Willis. To Say Nothing of the Dog. That's a great book. The story about time travel shenanigans.
That sounds like fun.
It's always a good read. Yeah, it's good stuff.
Yeah, there are a lot of therapists that I talk to and people who work with folks that are emotionally wounded, and it's very common for them to tell me that what's on their bedside table is fluff because they need that release from all of it they've been sitting in all day. So yeah, that's cool.
Well, just FYI to your audience, your brain, goes into theta waves before you go to sleep, and your theta waves are really powerful in regards to shaping and sculpting your identity. So you want to make sure before you go to sleep that you're in a good place, because that's going to help you have better dreams, and it's going to help you wake up happier in the morning. So take advantage of those waves and make sure you laugh before you go to sleep.
Yeah, absolutely. That's important. So who is inspiring you today?
I'm going to have to give you a cliche answer for that one. Unfortunately, it's not any spiritual guru or anyone like that. I'm going to have to say it's probably going to be my clients, to be honest with you, because I thought my story was rough, but it turns out it's not. And when you work with people who have like really, really big T traumas in their lives, and yet you see them still get up in the morning, raise their kids, go to work, and at the end of the day, they still want to be a better version of themselves. Like it's so easy to let yourself hate life and to hate God and to hate existence itself. You're given numerous proofs and references of why you should, right? But it's the people that don't let themselves do that, who try to be better and try to see the good in life, even though they've been given numerous opportunities and reasons to hate this world. They don't let themselves do that. To me, that's the definition of inspiration. If a person can take the worst that's been given to them and still try to be a good person, that's inspiring to me.
Yeah, that's always remarkable. I see a lot of people who've been through just such horrible battles in their marriage, and afterwards they turn around and their whole career is shaped by helping other people who are going through similar battles. So it's very inspiring.
Yeah, it definitely is.
Yeah. Well, I appreciate you joining me today. It's been very interesting to hear that you can actually reboot and rewire your brain and take those memories and put them somewhere else so they don't continue to impact you. I think a lot of people can benefit from the work that you're doing. Would you share with our listeners how they can get in touch with you, your website, your social media?
Yeah, absolutely. My website's just healingmindshift.com. It's all one word. You can email me at patrick@healingmindshift.com. I'm on Instagram, Healing Mindshift.
It's very easy.
Yeah. Try to come up with something easy to remember.
Yeah.
And you can get in touch with me, and if you have any questions about the experience or of doing a memory reconsolidation session, don't be afraid to ask. I also offer discovery calls if you believe you've got a particularly complicated issue and you want to see do you really think this can help? Well, we can jump on a discovery call and we can talk about what's been going on and whether I think this will help you. But more often than not, memory reconsolidation is beneficial for most people. Yeah.
Okay, and I'll put all of those links in the show notes so people can easily find you, and also put them on the Facebook page for the Silver Divorce Podcast, as well as Instagram. So, Patrick, thank you so much. This has been very enlightening, and I know it's going to help a lot of people.
Well, I hope so, and thank you.
Please join me on the next episode of the Silver Divorce Podcast. I also ask you to do me a favor and please follow this show and share it with people you know who are going through divorce. I'd love to hear from you at silverdivorcepodcast@gmail.com. This podcast is brought to you by our title sponsor, the Center for Sports Medicine and Orthopedics, and show sponsor, Medicare Misty. Center for Sports Medicine and Orthopedics is the area's leading provider of multi-specialty orthopedic care. Using innovative surgical techniques and technologies, our team of specialists deliver exceptional results backed by exceptional patient care. Learn more at sportmed.com. Medicare Misty is a real person who can help answer your Medicare questions. Get real help from her team at medicaremisty.com. Whether you are considering divorce or maybe you're newly in the divorce process, we'll help you on your journey and tell you things your attorney might not tell you. Until next time, remember, divorce, it's just one event. It does not define who you are. I'm Lisa, and I'll see you next time.